Hi everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here. Don't forget to subscribe. And it's Sunday, and we are doing breaches of the week. This week in data breaches, absolutely insane. We got Google, TransUnion, Farmers Insurance, DOGE, yes, the Department of Government Efficiency, we'll get to them. But thank you very much to Ron Handel, Jacqueline Wolf, and Stephen Schmidt for sending me a chunk of these. Please keep sending those tips my way. And with that, let's start big out of the gate with Farmers Insurance, because a recently discovered breach may impact more than 1 million of their customers, according to their filings with Maine. I do not have much more information on that beyond 1,071,172 policyholders may be caught up in this. So heads up to you, Farmers Insurance customers. Moving on, Vital Imaging Medical Diagnostic Centers in the state of Florida. They disclosed a February 2025 incident that involved potential unauthorized access to patient data. We're talking about 260,000 patients here. So medical information, insurance information, and demographic information were compromised, including names, dates of birth, contact information, and more. So heads up to you, Vital Imaging patients. Moving on. Let's head on over to France and talk about the retail giant Auchan, and I'm probably pronouncing that incorrect. My apologies to the French. Anyway, Auchan is informing that some sensitive data associated with loyalty accounts of several hundred thousands of its customers was exposed in an attack. Now, according to a sample of the notice, we are talking about full names, titles, and client status, postal address, email address, phone number, and loyalty card number as well. Now, Auchan is a French multinational retail group. They have 2,100 branches in 13 countries across Europe and Africa and employ 154,000 people. So this $35 billion U.S. company is taking it on the chin. Best of luck, customers of Auchan, assuming I'm pronouncing that correctly. Moving on, Legacy Treatment Services back here in the United States. They are investigating a breach of 42,000 patients and their records. So they're reporting that they learned of this breach on July 18th of this year, but it happened October 6th through the 11th of last year. So good job, guys. We're talking social security numbers, full names and birth dates, driver's license and state ID numbers, email addresses, bank names and routing numbers, credit card info, health insurance information, and more. Moving on, let's head on over to Oklahoma and talk about the Bartlesville School District. They just issued an alert basically on about an April 30th data breach, which had social security numbers in it, and there was a compromise there, and we're not sure about anything else, but they're going to offer credit monitoring to those. So heads up to you if you have anything to do with the Bartlesville, Oklahoma School District. Moving on, Washington Gastroenterology, Washington State for the record. Now, they are notifying individuals about a compromise of their personal information. On March 10th, they discovered unknown third-party access. Names, medical info, and social security numbers were caught up in this. So heads up, Washington State gastroenterology patients. Moving on, let's head on over to the Netherlands and talk about Dutch Lab Clinical Diagnostics, because the Dutch Population Screening Organization reports that data from a total of more than 940,000 women may have been leaked, which basically the laboratory currently confirms as 715,000 cases that they are working on. This is update from a previous number earlier this year of 230,000. So if you're Dutch and you're in the Netherlands and you're using clinical diagnostics and happen to be a woman, you might want to check in. Moving on, the credit bureau TransUnion, they confirmed, and TransUnion is one of the big four, they confirmed an unauthorized cyber incident happened on July 28th, impacting 4.4 million people, according to legal disclosures filed with Maine and Texas. We are talking names, social security, and dates of birth among the information stolen, according to the Texas filing. And so that's a lottery. Could be you, could be me. If you're hearing from TransUnion, or I'm hearing from TransUnion, we're not having a good day, right? And like I said, it was a short week, though Lord knows I went looking. A lot of it was repeats from the previous week, but we have two finalies for you. The first one is Google, and lordy lord, if you have a Gmail box, and odds are you do, strap yourself in, because there are 2.5 billion of us around the world. Google has issued a global security alert advising its 2.5 billion Gmail users to update their passwords following that Salesforce data breach that I mentioned Google was caught up in a couple of weeks ago. So, consumer Gmail and cloud accounts were not directly compromised, but the incident has triggered an aggressive wave of phishing and impersonation attacks targeting users across the platform. So, while the exposed data did not contain your password or sensitive consumer information, the stolen business contact details have been used in a wave of phishing campaigns that mimic legitimate communications from Google. In other words, they're just assuming you clicked on a link that looked like Google, and therefore you've got your password compromised or you've gotten yourself infected. So, according to Google's threat research team, phishing and vishing, that is voice phishing, basically via phone calls, essentially are now accounting for 37% of successful account takeovers on Google platforms. As somebody with a Gmail account that never opens email on Gmail, I just use it to sign up for crap, or I'm going to order something and I don't want to go to my regular mailbox. I think I'm okay. Not to mention enabling multi-factor authentication. If you have Gmail, and you should be enabling it, MFA on absolutely everything in your life anyway. So heads up to you. 2.5 billion Gmail users, go change that password. And, oh God, I don't want to talk about this, but we have to talk about this. Let's talk about DOGE, aka the Department of Government Efficiency. And here is my default preamble when I'm talking about anything politics. Cybersecurity is agnostic to politics, but we're not immune from it. And so here we go. And if this is true, it ain't good. Here's what's happening. On August 26th, Charles Borges, he's the Chief Data Officer, or CDO, of the Social Security Administration of the federal government, alleged that DOGE employees copied ultra-sensitive data to a cloud server that does not meet standards for protecting data privacy. The federal government has a standard that it requires cloud providers to basically be authorized or now certified in, called FedRAMP. Now, the most common one is FedRAMP Moderate, is 330 individual cybersecurity controls, but when you're looking at Social Security administrations, they have something called FedRAMP High, which is over 1,000 controls in the cloud. And so if you're copying this to just like your regular version of Dropbox or regular version of Box or regular version of Microsoft OneDrive or whatever, you can put some basic security controls around it, but it's not nearly as hardened as how the government operates and its contractors. Meaning if you're working with the federal government in some way, shape, or form and you're getting that information, you too need to use FedRAMP authorized cloud if you're using the cloud. So the whistleblower complaint was submitted by the Government Accountability Project. The database that Borges said was copied contains records of every social security number the federal government has issued to Americans. On top of that, all the names, addresses, and birth dates. Basically, anybody here, including myself as an American, that essentially has a social security number that's been issued to them has been compromised. Our grandparents, our parents, us, our kids, everybody, cousins, whoever. If it's an American, you got a social security card, here we go. So, in the whistleblower complaint, Borges alleges that DOGE officials employed by the Social Security Administration created a live copy of a critical database known as Numident, basically in the cloud environment. So that complaint includes an email from John Solly, a software engineer working at Social Security, who asked a career agency employee about making the copy shortly after the Supreme Court granted DOGE access into Social Security. So this Numident file is a database with over 548 million Social Security numbers, along with the identifying information of everyone living or dead who has ever had one. This is the whole kit and caboodle, folks. So, the complaint also enumerated the following allegations: that virtual cloud environments on the internal agency were accessible only by DOGE employees. In other words, there was no auditing or accountability or oversight of what DOGE was doing. That DOGE was warned that copying the data could make Americans vulnerable to identity theft, but proceeded with the project anyway. Again, even if you're running MFA on your Dropbox account using a Dropbox, and I do not know the cloud provider DOGE used, is still not secure enough because the provider does not have that FedRAMP authorization or certification. So, no verified audit or oversight mechanisms were in place to determine what the data was being used for and whether it was properly secured, and there was no independent security monitoring of the cloud environment. All of this is regulatory compliance. This is literally why we have audit trails, checks, privileged access management, all this kind of stuff, and they circumvented all of it. And DOGE also briefly circumvented a March 20th temporary order prohibiting access to certain Social Security data. In other words, they just ignored the court order, and essentially here we are. So DOGE officials bypassed also normal procedures to receive quote-unquote improper access to other databases with sensitive information. Now, this complaint included a copy of an email from Joe Cunningham. He is the agency's acting chief information security officer, warning that, quote, after a thorough review, we have determined that this request to copy the information poses a high risk. So, Borges' complaint shows that despite privacy concerns, Cunningham requested and received approval of Michael Russo, a senior DOGE-aligned official at Social Security, to sign off on the project of copying the database to this cloud server, despite making it clear that his recommendations to anonymize the personal data had not been followed. In other words, this nummydent file or database was unredacted, had all the information on everybody, social security numbers, names, addresses, etc. The whole thing was basically copied. All 548 million of us living and dead was copied to a cloud provider that doesn't have the proper security controls, auditing, logging, monitoring, oversight, all those different kinds of things that we require of the cloud. On top of this, further emails revealed that the data was transferred despite official security assessments, warning that if it were compromised, it would have a quote-unquote catastrophic impact on Social Security beneficiaries. I can't stress this enough, and I don't care what your political beliefs are. I genuinely don't. And if you're a longtime listener or follower of mine, you know that I'm just trying to call balls and strikes here. But this should upset anybody that has any concept of modicum of privacy. This is outside of politics. If they are taking some of the most sensitive data that Americans have in terms of our identifications, and they are moving it to basically a third-party cloud that doesn't have the proper security controls, that we don't understand who could potentially access this and copy this further, this is a huge, huge issue. This is a data breach on every single American citizen, living and dead. You can run a scam on a dead guy. So this is, I think, probably one of the most severe data breaches. And again, if this is true, if this whistleblower is correct, and I have yet to find, and I went looking to hear any kind of refutation on this. And what I did find were allegations of this very early on, from like February of this year. Remember, this administration started January 20th of this year, and so DOGE spun up in the wake of essentially the swearing in of President Trump. And so again, not political. I don't care about your politics. This is a data breach on every single American citizen, and this is something that needs accountability for. That's the whole reason why we have oversight in the government, to ensure these things don't happen, because this database could be copied, used. What if it's a weak cloud infrastructure and somebody's password is password, and now somebody else gets a copy of this? The entire US database ends up in the dark web. Maybe it ends up, with a defense contractor that can now build, tracking things on us. Like, who knows? I mean, the possibilities are absolutely insane. And I'm not getting tinfoil hat alarmist here, but think about the ways that AI could make patterns and connections through all of this data very quickly and easily for any organization out there, good, bad, or ugly. You can literally start tracking entire families. So this is an issue. And I'm going to leave it at that because, quite frankly, it's a problem. And again, cybersecurity is agnostic to politics, but we're not immune from it. And so this is something that we should all be concerned about. And again, I don't care how you voted. This is our privacy. So best of luck to us all. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP. And please feel free to subscribe to me at YouTube as well. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please, please, please attempt to stay private, informed, and secure. Take care.